Hello there everybody, this is Alex from Hardcore Guides, bringing my guide for Dante's Inferno on Infernal difficulty. Today we're doing part 2 entitled The Shores of Acheron. And I had to look that one up to find out the actual direct pronunciation for that one because I couldn't pronounce it very well. And I also learned, I guess it's like a river in Greece, so that's something interesting to think about. But this is of course going to be containing the Acheron, which makes sense now that I think about it, the Acheron's boat, or I pronounce that one too. Which, by the way, for those that are curious, I will eventually, after a couple of guides, at least this one and possibly Transformers next, I do plan on doing Chains of Olympus for God of War. So that will be the next big plan for that. And something I want to talk about real quick is I'm going to be talking to Virgil, mostly to be getting relics. So for those that are curious about, you know, where to get relics and where to get specific stuff and Judas coins and what have you, also Wilhelm Scream. I'm not the best guide for that, but I will, however, be getting the ones that I did talk about previously in the previous part. And for those that are watching this part, if you're watching this out of order, I'm going to tell you right now that this is a very somewhat prepared type guide, kind of. Not fully, like you can watch it out of order, but like for the most part, I would recommend watching it in order if you're really struggling and you're trying to figure out where specific things might be at or whatever. And you're trying to figure out like when to upgrade holy, when to upgrade unholy, and that kind of stuff. Because I kind of just go between, and eventually I kind of go back and forth. But for the most part, I tend to kind of stick with going from like holy to, or unholy to holy. I need to get that in my head. And what have you. So from here on out, like I've said before, oh, I forgot to look up the goddamn name of those enemies. That's not good. Well, give me a sec, because this is very unprofessional, of course, but for this part right here, it's pretty much just going to be infinitely spawning bugs, practically, hornets or whatever. So, these guys are mostly just kind of nothing, but do keep in mind that they do tend to respawn. And I know I mentioned earlier that the last part was potentially one of the easier levels in this game. I would also say this one's actually up there too in terms of easy. It doesn't start to get a little hard, at least until you get to Lust. Once you get to Lust, like the second circle, that's when things get a little bit more difficult to deal with. Let me see what these guys' names are. And of course, after you cross this bridge, make sure you take out any of the hornets that might be remaining, because once you finally crossed, typically they stop spawning. But yeah, after that's all said and done, we're now going to be fighting our first of the Guardians, I believe they're called. And this is where I'm going to give credit to Big Benedict, of course, because, you know, I usually end up watching him more than anything. So there's a fun little trick you can do with these guys, and I'll show you. What you do is you hold the heavy button, you knock them in the air, and then you hit the heavy button again, or you grab, hit heavy button, grab, hit heavy button, grab, hit heavy button. And the thing is, make sure you keep your eye on that prompt for you to grab the enemy. Because once you have that prompt to grab them, you're going to want to hold L2, or, you know, your block button kind of fall down a little faster. And not only that, but, you know, protect yourself from potential danger. But, yeah, as you can see, the prompt shows up like in a split second. But just make sure you're wary of that, so that way you can get, you know, your absolution or your punish. For right now, I'm going to be focusing on absolving the Guardians. I'm going to be focusing on using the punish for the smaller creatures for like most of the game, kind of. So, yeah, okay, so I think they're called pests, the little bugs are called. Beast Tamers, Hell Minion, Guardian Demon. Yeah, I believe. I think, yeah, because I think these little guys are just Hell Minions. So, and these guys should just be called Guardians. Looks like I eventually got level 1 for Unholy finally, and I'm going to be working on Holy. So, that takes care of that. Now, the thing with Guardians is they tend to be very block happy, so that's something to kind of keep in mind whenever you're fighting them, and something to kind of just be weary of. And if you get really good at the game, you can eventually just kind of understand when and just kind of predict when they're going to do a block attack. So typically when they block your attack, they usually tend to try to parry you too right after. So just bear in mind that that could happen, and just try to maybe even like preemptively just know when it's going to happen and then just use it against them. So basically you can parry their they're block parry, but you can't parry the unblockable attack that they throw at you. Which, of course, the unblockable would be red to kind of give you a to kind of signify that that's what that is. But yeah, so the original small little guys are called minions. The bugs are called pests. And then these ones are just called hell minions. I guess there's also the fire minions too that we fought earlier. And then the Asterian Beast is what the big Minotaur guy is called. So we'll just call him the Beast, and we'll call these guys the Guardians. And after that, once we get to Limbo, you know, we could be fighting the unbaptized babies, which was something that was, you know, potentially seen as it was a marketing tool back then that they seem to have used. I don't know fully the true depths of exactly what all the marketing entailed, because I kind of just didn't really pay that much attention. I remember hearing about like the fake talk about it, like they were having like fake promotions of the thing where they would essentially just get a bunch of protesters, but they would just be not actually angry about the game. It was a very interesting time. They're trying to rile up a lot of different types of hype. It was very strange, but yeah, back to talking with Virgil. I'm going to be mostly keeping a lot of these in. The ones I'll end up cutting out are typically ones that give me nothing in return for them, or if I just happen to forget, or just don't care enough. But if you want to pay attention to what he says, then, you know, I do have subtitles on, which, again, I know I turned up the brightness quite a lot, and I'm sorry for that, and I will change it eventually. For those that want to talk to Virgil yourself, granted, you can just, you know, listen to all of his talks if you want. But usually the indicator of whether or not you're going to get an item typically comes after, like, the second time. Or, like, when you pretty much just talk to him yourself. Like, once you enter the first prompt of talking to him, you know, you're going to get his, you know, speech. But then after that, you, like Dante, physically talks to him. And that's typically when you get a relic. And sometimes it actually goes for a third time. You got to talk to him a second time in order to get that potential relic. So that's something to kind of keep out for. But yeah, like I said, I won't be ending up getting all of the relics, I don't think. I think I missed most of them, a few of them. I don't even end up getting most of the Judas coins, but I will be showing you the ones that I do find. So this is not a 100% guide. I just want to keep that in mind for those that are curious. Now, something else I've learned about this trick, which, by the way, you're going to be seeing this a lot. This is going to happen a lot in this game. I'm going to be using that move a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean like almost every single time. So do bear that in mind, that this will be a particularly very boring-ish guide, but for the most part, I kind of treat my guides like how I do my playthroughs, where I give advice for people that might want the small little tip to get them through the entire game, at least until a certain point, and they, you know, they can eventually come back for more help, which is essentially what I kind of usually do sometimes. But like I said, if I have anybody to give credit to for certain things, I will give credit. Granted, in Ninja Gaiden 3, there was one person I didn't give credit to that I kind of don't remember the name of because it was just somebody I didn't really watch normally. And I apologize for that, but keep in mind that there are some things that I don't do on my own. For the most part, most of this is just kind of on my own. You know, I kind of just figured out, you know, cross attacks kind of work pretty well and just use them a lot. Now, granted, that was also something I kind of heard from Dick as well, was, you know, cross attacks do quite a bit of damage, but then I just eventually just kept doing myself and just was like, okay, yeah, they do a lot of decent damage. So I shouldn't try to lie and pretend like I figured it out. Especially since we're playing Dante's Inferno, which is all about sin and hell and stuff, so yeah. And that's something else I want to talk about real quick, too, is this should have a definite advisory to it, where I'd say just, you know, bear in mind that there's going to be a lot of imagery in this game that might not sit very well with you folks, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to watch if you don't want to, of course. I'm not going to force anybody to. And I will also be potentially not censoring most of anything. I just don't care unless YouTube gets pissed. But it's just a video game. Anyway, so the next upgrade I bought was the triple circle attack. And that's the last circle attack I'm going to be upgrading. I'm not going to be getting the heavy attack. I'm not going to be getting the last 5 hit. I would highly recommend, if you're going to be following my guide for this, I would 100% absolutely recommend that you do not upgrade your cross fully. As in, do not get the final 5th attack. You can get the heavy attack for all I care, but don't get the final heavy one. Also, I don't remember if this comes with it or not for the parry, but there's a circle cross parry that you can do, a cross attack parry. And you're going to want that, too. If that was an upgrade, then that's something you should definitely get. I don't think it is an upgrade. I think it's just... I think it comes with the parry initially, so I think you just buy the parry and you should get it. But that's for further investigation when we get to that point. But yeah, this room right here, I did die, actually. I did die on this part because I was being kind of silly. But yeah, I basically just go and attack as many of the hell minions as I can and just absolve them for now because that's what I'm trying to build up. I'm trying to get up to level 2 at this point, and kind of just to reiterate real fast, I do want to say that I will be, of course, absolving most, if not all, of the main enemy types, or the main bigger enemy types, the ones that can be absolved, like the guardians and such, and like the armored ones eventually later, and what have you. And the gluttons too, but the gluttons eventually come around to the point where I just kind of just do both. But for the most part, in this beginning area, and pretty much this second part of the game, I should say, the second chapter or whatever, I'm going to be focusing on getting my level 2 absolve, or my level 2 holy, and just be absolving, you know, these enemies and what have you. But yeah, something I want to talk about real quick. While doing that attack in midair, if you really want to make it an infinite attack, because you can only do like so many loops before the enemy eventually bounces down, something you can do, and this is something I learned, is you can continuously press the square button. You can do like the square combo, or just even like a couple of square hits while you're in the motion of doing it, like right now, like that combo right there. And essentially, you want to do that after you've thrown them down and done like a triangle move or whatever, or just wherever you feel it works better for you, of course. And doing those square attacks basically make it to where you're going to be falling down like while doing them, but don't fret because they come in a hell of a lot of handy. They really truly do. They come in handy quite often. Those square attacks in midair, I mean. And yeah, basically it makes it to where you can pretty much just almost get a free infinite for the most part. You will be, of course, like I said, be dropping down continuously while you do it, but you can get yourself back up by doing the R2 in air and then the triangle. I'm probably just going to call it that from now on, just to make it easier on myself. Calling it light and heavy is kind of hard now, so I just kind of give up on that. Acheron's or absolving enemies. Yeah, so this one we're going to have 2. I did equip this one, so now we're going to get like an extra point for absolution. So that's something that you definitely want to kind of have on right now, because you do have 2 relic slots. I'm just a complete moron who didn't realize that. Oh, something else, too. Speaking of absolution, I will be showing only just the first absolve for the damned. And after that, I will just show you, you know, the souls I get out of it. If I go for a punish, I'll show it in full. But for the absolutions, I will not be showing them off. I will be skipping all the minigames because you guys can kind of figure that one out for yourselves, right? So you don't need a silly man on the internet to tell you how to do a minigame, because you kind of get used to it. And even if you do fail, you could always just, you know, die or restart checkpoint or whatever. Basically restart checkpoint or reload save, which I would also recommend saving often. That's something that should be definitely done, because this game, at least my copy, is a little old. This is my, I literally have the day 1 edition of it, so I pre-ordered it. Yeah, and I still have my copy, and I'm actually grateful for that, to be honest with you. I'm really grateful for that. I also pre-ordered Bioshock 2 around that same time. I tried pre-ordering today Mega Man Battle Network that comes out tomorrow, which is going to be April 14th tomorrow. I tried pre-ordering it today, but the only copies they had that were available for pre-order were on the goddamn Switch, and if I had the option to get the PlayStation copy, well, you know me, I'm going to go for that. I have nothing against the Switch, but personally, I'd rather just have the copy for PlayStation instead. But yeah, I will just be skipping these and showing showing you how many souls I got out of them, so you guys can get like an idea of like, oh, okay, so he got like 30 of the fucking sins cleared, so I can get away with that too. And right now, of course, as you saw, I upgraded the Death's Reach, so now I have a farther reaching grab attack, and that's going to come in handy. So this next area is very somewhat difficult. I wouldn't say like it's incredibly difficult, but it's just really annoying because you have to deal with pests a lot. And not just the normal kind of like, oh, well, small little minion guys. No, I mean like these little turds. These flying turds. So, yeah, again, back to what I said before, and I will be showing it off more often, but if you do want to kind of keep your combo going for like a potentially infinite amount of time, until the enemy, of course, dies. Then you want to be using light attacks in midair alongside your triangles and your R2s. So that way you can keep a steady attack going. Because, again, these guys do drop eventually. But at this point in time, I didn't know about that. I only knew about the one attack that I had learned. Which, again, you know, credit to Bic Benedict, of course. Bic Benedict. I watch him often enough. So, yeah. He was always like the hard mode guide I would usually... whatever. I'd watch back in the day. I'd usually watch his Ninja Guide and stuff. I also watch Seraphim 17, but that's like the only two I really watch. Every once in a while I watch Taz 1 with like the number 1 at the end, and sometimes I watch The Godfather Dictator because, you know, that guy's really good at stuff. So, he's also not exactly what I expected him to look like either, actually, to be honest with you. I found him recently on the live stream thing, and I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't know he looked like that. I thought he'd be like a lot bigger and buffer than really what he was, but that might be a compliment, I don't know, but I don't mean to insult anybody, I'm just saying, like, that's kind of what I expected. But yeah, at this point in time, you don't have to be a silly willy like me and just not equip the next relic, because I didn't know I could. I thought I had to get a relic slot for that, but no, you should have 2 relic slots available. Something else to keep in mind too with this fight is the pests are gonna, for the most part, infinitely spawn, and that's gonna be a common occurrence in this game. Is whenever you're fighting, like, oh, also you saw that block in midair. That's what I was talking about when it comes to using that as a falling technique. So think of like Smash Brothers, where like you're fast falling pretty much. That's what it's called. Yeah. But that's gonna be like a main common thing. Is typically you have like a group of like relatively, I'd say, mid-sized enemies, and then you have like a bunch of infinitely small enemies that spawn, and you will of course run out of souls to collect from them. And it takes a little longer, but you will eventually run out of, like, absolve points and punish points. So do be careful with that. You know, keep in mind that eventually these things can run out and they don't have finite resource, even if the enemies tend to just exist within, like, an infinite spawn. But if you want them to stop spawning, then the best way to take care of them is to, of course, take out the medium-sized enemies. Which, of course, when we get to Greed, that's going to be worse. It's going to be a lot worse. So now we gotta fight yet another secondary beast, and of course a beast rider. And I just say, screw it. I might as well just, you know, hit him with cross attacks now while I got the chance. And plus, since you're on Infernal difficulty, you do less damage to enemies for the most part, and they also do a ton more damage. That's something else I've come to notice over the years about this game is you take a lot of pain. You really do. And I know this sounds, again, self-explanatory, but it just kind of bears repeating for, you know, my own sake, because I am personally dumb myself, and I like to talk about a lot of stuff, and I like to talk about everything in detail. And this is going to sound like common sense to everybody, you know, of course, but don't take damage. That's kind of like a big, you know, it's almost kind of like a big no-no in this game, it seems, because this game really does not like you at all when it comes to just about, you know, your health and stuff. You really do, once you're past the prologue, you really do start to take a lot of damage for some strange reason. But then when you get to Fraud, all of a sudden the enemies just kind of drop in terms of damage. And not only that, but they also drop in terms of health too. It's very bizarre. And I think the reason why they did that was probably because of the challenge mode. They probably just wanted to make it a little easier to kind of go through. But yeah, just basically for this part, just do what you did to a beast again, and just essentially just whack at him a few times, dodge, whack at him a few times, dodge. If you want to be that careful, you know, like I said in the previous part, just, of course, use cross attacks. So those always come in handy. Also, the Quick Time events. These ones are manipulative because they have the same button prompts every single time. Meaning it's going to be square, triangle, and then circle right after. And once we are on the wall while climbing on this beast, it's going to be the same Quick Time event anyway as well with that one too. So yeah, just, you know, hit square a bunch of times, hit triangle a bunch of times, and circle a bunch of times. Like, if you want to show your roommates, you know, and be like, hey, yo, check this out. Like, I can play this game almost blind, and then you can just do that, and they'd be like, whoa, that's so dope. How did you do that? And it's like, I don't know, man, I just guess. And they'd say, like, oh, was that random? And you say, yep. You just lie about it. I used to kind of do that with, I did that, like, once before with God of War. Like, for anybody that knows about God of War 1, you know, like the very, very, very first fight, first boss fight, technically speaking, with the Hydra, the very first, like, first Hydra head, all you gotta do is just hit triangle, and that's it. That's the entire quick time event. I used to just pretend, like, I used to just look away, and then I'd tell somebody, like, hey, look at this. Look away, and then press triangle. Mash it the entire time, be like, look, I can do it. And they're like, whoa, so cool. And it's like, not really, I just know the button prompts. Because they're literally just the same button. But then, of course, you know, later on in the game, they eventually changed that. But for Dante's Inferno, though, strangely enough, the button prompts typically don't change. Throughout the entire game, when it comes to getting on top of a beast, you will always be pressing square, triangle, circle. It's very strange. And speaking of very strange button presses, maybe I'm crazy, I don't know, but I used to remember that if you were to press circle, but instead you press square, sometimes it works, but I don't think that's true. I might just be lying to myself, so. But that was when I was a kid, when I was playing this, when I was like a teen or whatever, and it came out. This came out like, what, 2011, 2010? I think it was 2010. I think so. Splatterhouse came around that time, too, which is crazy. Oh, yeah, real quick, I want to say, don't do what I just did. I just wasted my redemption bar. Don't do that. I have a bad problem with pressing buttons, so yeah. But hey, you know, for those that are interested in seeing me have to fight enemies at a harder level, then there you go. I have no redemption bar for Minos, but we don't need it. He's a relatively simple boss. But anyway, that's it for today, so take care, everybody.